Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another X-Men comic review. And today I'll be covering the first limited series of Rogue and Marie. And I also had to go with the classic 90s version because, duh, most of the stuff being like 90s, characters, or at least centered around that time frame. There's only a few instances where like you go through different points in time depending on when a writer want to talk about a particular member of the X-Men. So, or at least, you know as long as it's like a good lengthy one, I'll go with it. But yeah, Anne Marie Rogue, and of course, you familiar, she's, her powers are very familiar. She has a mutant ability to absorb people's life force, and if they have abilities, absorb those abilities on skin contact. Stay connected to her longer, for too long, she will eventually, take away your life. But there's on rare occasions where she actually held on long enough to permanently keep a particular power. And now, of course, when she absorbs certain abilities, they tend to be temporary. But in the 90s TV show, she held on to Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, for too long, which allowed her to steal her ability permanently. Well, not steal, but just kind of copy permanently her ability to fly, her super strength. And that's always been like her part of her power set. In the comics, it was Wonder Man instead. I think I kind of like the whole well, it's Miss Marvel in the comics, but it mentions something in the Marvel Wikipedia about it being Wonder Man, which is kind of odd. And it's like, maybe I'm misreading it, but for the sake of the argument, let's say it's always been like Captain Marvel. She took the ability to fly and have super strength on top of her own mutant ability. And for years, of course, Rogue, always struggled with not being able to be close to anyone, endangering their livelihood, and especially making it hard when she has a romantic interest in Gambit for a long time. They always had that will they won't they thing. It wasn't until like a couple of years ago when they finally got married. So so it's one of those thank God occasions, because there's certain characters that's clearly meant to be together, and the comic book industry always, had like a bug with it, but about like not want to age up their readers, so they put them in a perpetual state of status quo. But it's just at a certain point you gotta bite that bullet and allow certain characters just to stay with each other. It doesn't, like, you still telling good Gambit and Rogue stories despite them being married. So that's why I always advocate on having Peter Parker marry Mary Jane and be done with it. Batman marry Catwoman, be done with it. And like it goes for Wonder Woman too. Just marry Steve Trevor, be done with it. I think like characters like Miles Morales or Kamala Khan, Nova Alexander, these, fairly younger individuals, you can play around with their relationships on and off again with whatever character as much as you want. They got like a longer lifespan. They have a, because it took like the old guard, I guess, 60 years or so to eventually, certain writers, come into into the fold to decide to finally tie that freaking knot. You know, no pun intended. So you got the new guard where you can have 60 years of them messing around with different like relationships and what have you, or just be single, whatever the case may be, before you finally settled on who they will ultimately end up with. That's just my take on it. Anyway, this is written by Howard Mackie, art by, what's the guy's name? Terry Austin. Now this kind of picks up right after my Gambit, the first Gambit limited series by Chris Claremont, who also was the creator of Rogue as well as Gambit. Now, by the by, please check out my other X-Men related reviews I've been doing in the past few weeks at this point. Like I said, I want to cover like something that, you know, the MCU should be doing, where it kind of cover if not a movie, but like short, you know, vignettes or something of each member of the X-Men before you pull them together, so you get to know a bit of them, have their own little worlds before you pull them all together. And of course I can't go over everybody, like, you know, there's like X Factor and X Force. Now there's a couple of people from X Force that I will be covering on this list because they kind of, you know, have like a good stronghold on the X-Men team, more so than probably most others. But eventually, in some point in the future, not this year, I will probably try to cover like X Factor and X Force, because, you know, one's a strike team, one's like a Black Ops team, which is kind of fun to like check those out. Because, you know, I don't think I really dived into like X Factor and X Force like that. I know I read at least a couple of books here and there with them, but it really never grabbed me as a kid. I didn't give them like a good, you know, time of day and appreciation of what they could possibly bring to the fold. Or maybe like I was reading stuff that, you know, wasn't any good and kind of turned me off on the entire team as a whole. But eventually I would, like, you know, actually sit down and try out an X Force comic run and an X Factor comic run. Anyway, Anne-Marie is going back to Mississippi, where she grew up from. And I like this little moment where, you know, she's flying high right next to some, you know, fighter jets, and she and they're like in bewilderment. It's kind of like the situation with, like, you know, Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, where there's like the two like all struck about like there's somebody flying near us, and of course Rogue, being the Southern Belle, meet me under the willow tree and give me a kiss on my honey lips. She kisses on top of the, you know, windshield of one of the jets and flies off, and dude just in awe, like, I think I'm in love. Like, what'd you say? Oh, nothing. Let's just go home. Let's forget about this, you know. So she's flying back because once a year, at least back, you know, around like the 90s, she takes one day of the year where she goes back to Mississippi and visit her old boyfriend named Cody. Now, if you watch my, you know, review on, well, I already did like the first 3 X-Men movies, which is a spoiler reviews. They are up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. All the links are in the description below. You also check out my Patreon, where you can subscribe to one of the tiers if you have certain reviews that you want me to cover, and Patreon members get first, you know, crack at it. Check out the description of the tiers if any of them are to your liking, the lowest tier being $1. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. I'm near my 400 subscriber goal, where once we reach that, I will be doing a Hot Ones challenge video where I'll be getting the actual hot sauces from the show and trying them out live while I answer 10 questions that I collect from you guys either via Twitter or YouTube. But anyway, so she heads back to Mississippi. All the while, if you checked out my review on Gambit, which so far has been one of my favorite solo X-Men coverage so far, as far as the solos are concerned, because I like the Cyclops one. I think Jean Grey is pretty up there too, but I think Gambit so far is at the tippy top as far as like, wow, this is really, really solid work. I mentioned how the writing and the art is like really in depth. This, like I said, picks up right after that, and of course, we got a different illustrator. And I'm just gonna put it right there on Front Street. I don't care for this art. There's moments where certain faces, like Gambit's face, seems kind of wonky to me. It seems like a step backward. Of course, I'll be covering another comic right after this, which I think is probably far worse, but we'll get to that. But you're familiar with Chandra and the Tithe Collector, because Chandra is an external, a particular brand of mutants that have the ability of long life. So she's immortal. And long time ago, she orchestrated the feud between the assassins and the thieves guilds over the years and bestowed upon one of them, like the gift of life and the other gift of power. Long life for the thieves and power for the assassins. Only they get those if they annually come through on their tithes to the tithe collector. And after the events of the previous story, which check it out if you want to know the full story, it's been outed that Chandra pretty much like orchestrated this long blood feud and caused inadvertently caused like deaths on both sides of the fence, all because she was bored and needed something to do. And of course, she had some kind of romantic relationship with Gambit at one point, because the guy just got it like that. So at this point, Belladonna, Gambit's former fiance, of course, in the way and in his limited series, she did not remember him, but here she clearly remembers him. So maybe somebody just brought her up to speed on what's been going on while she was in a coma. But she is now the leader of the Assassins Guild, because it was previously her father, but he passed away. And now she has bitter resentment of Remy LeBeau, which only is stoked by Chandra. But she even more angry at Rogue, because at one moment in the Gambit limited series, while she was in a coma, she does that, jerking, the body jerks, and accidentally touch Rogue's bare hand, and Rogue inadvertently took some of Belladonna's memories, life she had with Gambit when they were young in New Orleans. And so she felt like Rogue stole something from her. We'll get to that soon. But now Chandra is, going to Belladonna. It's like, I never liked the Thieves Guild anyway, and we've been stuck on the old ways for too long. It died with your father, but we can work up, a new, negotiations and a new status quo, and like, I'll help you along with this mission. Well, she's full of bunk anyway, because this one's kind of sadistic. Maybe not like physically for like torture or anything like that, but it's just like she loves messing with people and gassing their head up too much. Pretty much preying on Belladonna's, you know, anger. And of course, Belladonna doesn't care as long as she gets her hooks into Rogue and Gambit for what they did to her. She ends up meeting up with Gambit after they deal with some rowdy bikers. She mentions how she's still, one of her greatest regrets is putting her old boyfriend Cody in a coma when they were young, because it was around the time where her powers first manifested. Of course, she didn't have any idea that was the case, and I remember from the 90s animated show, her own father kind of just disowned her because of who she was, but she held that guilt to this day on, because her powers, as you will see that her powers really, only did like some serious damages 3 times up to this point. That's what happened to Cody first, then Captain Marvel, then Belladonna. And that, but Cody's the one that kind of weighs more heavily in her mind, that it's like, even though people probably keep telling her like, don't blame yourself, you had no way of knowing, and you can't blame yourself for something that wasn't in your control. So Gambit, of course, wanted to help her, but this is like her own thing. But she ends up going to the hospital to check up on Cody, and that's when she gets ambushed and beaten the heck out of by these group of assassins, until one of them opened up some kind of like hologram, psychic hologram thing, where you see like Belladonna's face, and she's telling Rogue like, like I blame you for what's happened to my family. I'm gonna, because they end up kidnapping Cody, but then she threatens to go after Gambit, 2 people that she cares about the most. So being distraught, knowing that she got her butt handed to her pretty handily, and she got caught with her pants down, she ends up crashing down near a lake where the water comes alive and turns into the shape of that black New Orleans caretaker woman, who isn't too thrilled about what Bella's been doing, and the fact that kidnapping a guy in his coma just to exact your revenge is pretty foul. Even for like an assassin, that is pretty foul. So I know this black woman got a name, but it's like it never stuck with me. But Rogue obviously is worried about Gambit and doesn't know where he is at the moment, because you probably should have let him tag along with you. She ends up pointing Rogue into the direction that she needs to go. Of course, later on, Bella finds out what this woman's been doing and ends up locking her up for betrayal. And right as Gambit was assisting some motorists and also flirting with them, because he just can't help himself, he, being an expert thief, he's able to, and then dealing with the assassin so much, he's able to like know that they're around. He just got like his own little spidey sense without the wavy things on his head. But as Rogue, you know, as the fight is about to ensue, Rogue comes swooping in like Superman and tackles two of these assassins to the ground. And they all fight off, and it's really dope. But once it's all said and done, they have a little, camp out. And Rogue just, it's a nice little moment where Rogue just tells Remy, because look, basically, like, can't you just hold me? Just hold me. And if you've been in a relationship for a decently long time, you know what this means. They just need comfort. Because Gambit didn't try to fix anything. He barely didn't even talk. He just sat there with her, which more often than not, women just need. But then the next morning, she sneaks off, not wanting to endanger Remy since he's going after Bella and Chandra. But then she starts reminiscing about the three particular people that she probably hurt the most. Being distracted, she ran into more assassins, and she just like wrecked shop with all these powers that she commands. She is a force to be reckoned with, and God help if you actually touch her skin or let her touch you. She's pretty much like an energy vampire. So then she took on a voodoo man and a teleportation guy that she struggled with earlier in the first issue. They was ready to really like lay into her until Rogue snaps out of it, because the voodoo guy hit her with some kind of powder thing that causing her to hallucinate. Very Scarecrow vibes from DC. With the ensuing ruckus, since they're on the ground, walls are collapsing from that fight, and the place is about to be flooded. And Rogue took information from a mother how to fly. Not mother. I'm blanking. I was like, sorry. No. Let me just backtrack, and they're gonna kind of like had like a 40-inch slip. Rogue got hit with a powder. It caused her to hallucinate. Very Scarecrow vibes. But at this point, she is like, okay, I guess with training, because when you see her fight, physically and mentally, and to a certain extent, spiritually, this is all in culmination of her training in the danger room and how prepared she was, especially when she's fighting like so many people at once and be able to take care of herself. That is all thanks to the constant training in the danger room that make her so effective, even against these so-called expert assassins. So she, got out of that hallucination that was put on her and lays out the voodoo man. Then she ends up walking into a shapeshifter, and it changes into Cody, Miss Marvel, Gambit, the three main people that Rogue, is like, probably like the most like not afraid but just triggered by in some shape or form. But she managed to rise above it and fight back, knowing this is all like fake, and knocks out the shapeshifter immediately. Well, Chandra is amusing herself uh, uh, Belladonna is ready for battle. She's ready to take on these two by herself. Here's the thing, because Chandra likes, to be entertained, she thought using superpowers as a crutch. So she used her telekinetic ability to almost like negate, cancel that part of their brain that controls their powers. And she mentions like how it's harder for her to take powers away than it is to give people powers. And of course, she's still like infatuated with Gambit, even though he's trying to tell her like, yeah, let this kid go. He is not in good shape. This is, below even for you. This is, this is very low even for you. And of course, all the while, he's pickpocketing his restraints. Uh, 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 Rogue managed to overpower Belladonna. And what's her name? Chandra did mention that little by little, the people whose powers I took away will automatically come back at, slow and steady, but they will come back. So she ends up laying out Belladonna, then going up against not Callisto, the external not Bella, I can't want to say Belladonna, the external Chandra. And while Chandra is trying to still manipulate her, Rogue is a little bit more prepared, so she ends up fighting back, knocking Chandra completely out cold from the feedback. And before all this happened, Chandra just casually just threw a comatose person off the roof, and Rogue managed to catch him in time. And the nanny, the black magical nanny, like a Stephen King novel, teaches them how to teaches Rogue how to communicate with Cody in the afterlife, which she managed to do. She sitting there break it down. I like this moment where she's like, she doesn't look down on him like he's like a kid. She stooped to his level because technically he's an adult, but just in afterlife, just perpetually a kid. And she started breaking down, saying like, I'm sorry for what I did. I couldn't control my powers at the time. And Cody, and I love this part of the comic where Cody is like, don't worry, Anna Marie. It's all good. You go out there and do your thing. I gotta move on, but don't hate yourself. Don't beat yourself up for something that you didn't do. It's like, it's a shame that it had to take to this point where you actually talks to the Force Ghost, basically, to let them know they did okay with the tools that they had at the time. But that was the limited Rogue. I want to say the Rogue cut, but this is great writing. It's just the art. It's like, I don't know. It's just starting here is like I said, wonky, and just like something about the individual's eyes. This doesn't sit right for me, and the facial expressions don't sit right with me. But yeah, but aside from that, I still have fun reading this. There's a couple other Rogue stories that I could easily get into, but that will be a while. Yeah, that will take a while. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of Rogue if you read this back in the day. Because I really enjoy, since I know where to find some good comics to read online, I can just go and read certain things that only had like one issue as a child and never know how it ends, or sometimes don't know how it even begins. So I'm left with like a little patchwork in my mind. But like Rogue, cool Southern Belle, but do not let her touch your skin. At least for not like, no longer than a minute. But I think it's kind of worth it just to get a kiss from Anna Marie. This thing's slightly worth it because she's like one of the hottest ex babes in the roster. But anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of Rogue, the limited series by Howard Mackie. And I will see you guys in a few minutes with the Marvel X-Men character Storm. I'll see you later. I swear I feel like I'm forgetting something from the Rogue thing, but I think I pretty much covered my bases. It's pretty short and sweet, like I said. So covered like the general gist of it. I highly recommend it though. I just want to let you guys know. Highly recommend you guys check it out. The art isn't totally offensive, but I just seem better. Let's put it that way. All right, for real now. I'll see y'all in a few minutes.